Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs defied all odds this season. You know, before the playoffs began, most people felt like Kansas City at best was going to go no further than the divisional round. Their offense didn't look that good for the majority of the regular season. And this probably is the least talented team that the Chiefs have had under the Mahomes, Andy Reid era that has made it to the Super Bowl. But what's funny is that, and I was telling a friend of mine this a couple of minutes ago, the best team doesn't always win the Super Bowl. You think about those stacked Patriots teams, the ones that lost to Eli Manning and the Giants twice. They had Wes Welker, Randy Moss, prime Tom Brady, tons of future Hall of Famers, and yet they got upset by the Giants twice. And ironically, the last recent Super Bowls that Brady and Belichick won together, those teams weren't super stacked offensively. But the reason why the Patriots were able to win those Super Bowls despite being at a talent disadvantage is because, for one, they were always well coached. Two, Tom Brady and Bill Belichick, you always knew that they were going to show up no matter how big the game was, no matter how big the moment, they were always going to come through. And you see the exact same similarities with this Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid dynasty in Kansas City. You see, Patrick Mahomes, this is the best that he's played in the postseason in his whole entire career. It's like he just went into a different bag in this playoff run. Kansas City's defense has been fantastic all season, but this may have been the best defensive performance that we've ever seen out of all the years that Steve Spagnuolo has been the defensive coordinator of the Kansas City Chiefs. Lamar and this offense, they just got completely bottled up. They scored only 10 points. This is the worst offensive performance that B. Moore has had at home all season long. You got to remember that the biggest concern that many of us had about Kansas City being able to make it to the Super Bowl was the fact that they only had one home game. They had to go on the road and win in Buffalo, go on the road and win in Baltimore, a place where Baltimore technically dominates. And Kansas City, to their credit, they weren't the more talented team than Baltimore, but they were more well coached. They were more prepared. Patrick Mahomes showed us all why he still is the king of the NFL. He outplayed Lamar Jackson, and they were ready for the big moments. You see, Baltimore, you can tell that this was their first AFC Championship with Lamar at the helm, because Kansas City, they were emotionally composed. They didn't have any penalties that came out of emotions, like how the Baltimore Ravens did. You had Lamar Jackson getting frustrated on the sidelines. You had the unnecessary roughness penalty by Roquan Smith. Zay Flowers had a penalty, and he had a costly fumble when he was trying to extend the score. The Ravens just weren't ready for this game. You see, Kansas City, they came out doing what got them there. They came out doing what had success against the Miami Dolphins in Buffalo. That was playing complimentary football, running the football, great defense, and Mahomes doing what Mahomes does best. They didn't forget who they are. You see, the Ravens have been the team that, yes, Lamar Jackson has had a lot of incredible performances throwing the football, but this is not a team that is equipped to win by going old school air raid. Do you know how many handoffs the Ravens gave their running backs in this game? Only 6. Gus Edwards, Justice Hill only touched the ball a combined total of 6 times. We didn't even hear Dalvin Cook's name. Lamar Jackson, only 8 carries for 50-something yards. Kansas City was blitzing the hell out of Lamar Jackson. They were not going to allow Lamar Jackson to become Superman in this ball game for the Baltimore Ravens. You see, Lamar Jackson, he made some really bad decisions in this game. That last interception that he threw to close this game off in the triple coverage was one of the worst decisions that I've seen Lamar make all season long. But you can't put all of this loss on him, because if it wasn't for Lamar, the Ravens probably lose this game 24-3, because him and Zay Flowers were the only people on this offense that showed up in this ball game. Hell, even Todd Monken didn't show up. Like, his play calling has been stupendous all season. He's been fantastic at making sure that this Ravens offensive attack has been able to be balanced. Complementary football is what the Ravens have done better than any other team in the National Football League this year. But in today's game, we didn't see complementary football being played at all. They came out and they said, we're going to go Lincoln Riley, Mike Leach, and we're just going to throw the rock all over Kansas City, and it backfired in their face. The games that the Ravens have lost at home this season mostly have been due to them not being able to win the football. And the last time they lost the game that they've been unable to run the rock successfully was when they lost early in the season to Deshaun Watson when he was still healthy, starting at quarterback for the Browns. The Ravens are a team that still is going to win and lose games the majority of the times based on how dominant they are on the ground. And when you bottle up the run game, you make this offense one-dimensional, you put a lot of pressure on Lamar Jackson and these receivers to make plays. I don't think Lamar Jackson played a terrible game. Was it a good game? Absolutely not. And he definitely got outplayed and outclassed by Patrick Mahomes, but the receivers and the supporting cast and the play calling definitely let him down also. And this was a conservative effort. Baltimore, this was their D-plus performance on offense. Their defense showed out in this game. They held Kansas City to only 17 points. And they gave the offense every opportunity to find a way to turn it around. But anytime the Ravens were able to just get a little bit of momentum offensively, they always did something to lose it. Rather, if it was the Zay Flowers fumble, if it was the Lamar Jackson interception, that Lamar Jackson INT was the game sealer. At that point, you knew that the Ravens defense, they weren't going to be able to get Mahomes and company off the field when it mattered. And we saw Patrick Mahomes make that big play on 3rd and long to MVS. Ironically, Kansas City missed on a similar play during the season to MVS when they needed him to make a big catch downfield. He was wide open, but he dropped the ball. It's good to see the second go around, they rolled the MVS late in the game, and he comes through for him. You see, that play right there was the definition of having that championship experience and that coming back to play. No matter how left the season looked like it was going to go for Kansas City, Mahomes and Andy Reid still had all the confidence in the world and the wide receivers that they had on that squad. And Travis Kelce. Hell, I thought he was washed. But this playoff run has been one of the best that he's had statistically. He showed up in every single game during this playoff run for Kansas City. And no matter if he retires or chooses to come back for another season, he still is going to be arguably a top 3, top 5 tight end in the game if he comes back for one more season next year. But I have a strong suspicion that he's going to hang it up. But Travis Kelce, Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, Isaiah Pacheco, Rashee Rice, the star players that Kansas City has been reliant upon all season long, have delivered for them all throughout the postseason this year. And they came through in the biggest moments during this AFC Championship win. That's what a championship football team is. It's not all about who's the most talented. It's about rising to the occasion. Like we've seen Tom Brady and Bill Belichick in that Patriots dynasty do so many times in the past. And now we're seeing ghosts from the past with this Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid Kansas City Chiefs dynasty. Lamar Jackson and the Ravens in third down situations, they weren't able to get it done. Critical downs late in the game when Lamar Jackson needed to put the Ravens in position to make this a one-score game, he wasn't able to get it done. Is this an MVP season that has gone in vain? I don't think so. You look back at Lamar Jackson, if he was to retire 5 years from now and you think about his career, you will remember him for being one of the most dominant quarterbacks of the past decade. All right, when Lamar Jackson is on, he's on. But you'll look back at this career and you'll say there was a lot left on the table. And if Lamar Jackson never wins a Super Bowl, you're going to go back to this game. You're going to go back to when he threw that interception in the triple coverage, and you're going to say, that's the Lamar Jackson that I remember. You see, nobody cares about what you do in the regular season. People, once you reach a certain level as a quarterback and you're a Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, or Joe Burrow, hell, even CJ Stroud, if you already have solidified yourself as an elite quarterback in the game, nobody gives a damn about your regular season accolades. What you do in the postseason is what defines you as a player. It's what defines your legacy. The reason why Eli Manning is a Hall of Famer is because of how great he has been and the New York Giants Super Bowl wins and the incredible historic playoff performances that he's put on display. Playoff Eli is way different from the Eli Manning that you see in the regular season. Elite players step up in the biggest games on the biggest stage, and Lamar Jackson didn't do that. Now, Lamar Jackson, I'm not saying that he's never going to get to another Super Bowl, but this was his best opportunity to get to one. And of course, he's going to say, we're going to be back next year, and Ravens fans are going to expect to be back next year. And that definitely should be the expectation. But the AFC is so crowded with elite quarterbacks that you may not ever get back to this game if you're the Baltimore Ravens. You see, making it to a Super Bowl is hard enough. And getting yourself into the conference championship game and this tough of a conference is something that you can only do if you have a Hall of Fame level head coach like the Chiefs do and Andy Reid, and the all-time great quarterback in Patrick Mahomes, and just a different mentality in the fourth quarter. You see, for how great Lamar Jackson is, one thing that I never think about Lamar Jackson when somebody brings his name up to me is his ability to step up in the fourth quarter of games. I can't remember the last time Lamar Jackson has engineered a fourth quarter comeback. 2 minutes left in the game. The Ravens are down 6. They need Lamar Jackson to drive them downfield to get the game-winning score to seal the victory. I don't think of Lamar Jackson for being clutch. I think of Lamar Jackson for being a super dynamic quarterback that can do everything outside the step up in the big moments. You see, the Ravens got way too emotional in this game. They weren't being disciplined. They weren't being calm and focused, and that's what killed them. When he threw that interception, the triple coverage, that was an emotional decision. He wanted to get it all right then and there, instead of just taking what the defense gave him. OBJ, where was he at? He was a no-show in this game. They're paying him, what, $18-19 million this season? And yeah, he made a couple of big plays throughout the year, but in the playoffs, he's been kind of ghost. Mark Andrews, he was healthy. He suited up. The way he played, you would have thought that he still was on IR. Nobody on this Ravens offense, other than 2 players, stepped up. Your defense, when you're going up against Patrick Mahomes, can only bail you out so many times. And I know that a couple of weeks ago, I said that Lamar Jackson is the best quarterback in the NFL. He's better than Mahomes. And I do take accountability for looking like a damn fool making that comment. But what I meant by that statement is that Lamar Jackson is more talented than Patrick Mahomes, just from a pure talent standpoint. There's not a single throw that Mahomes can make that Lamar Jackson can't make. And there are a lot of plays that Lamar Jackson can make that Mahomes can't make. But at the end of the day, you don't need to be the most athletically gifted quarterback to win the Super Bowl. You see, what Mahomes excels at the most that Lamar Jackson lacks is having that killer instinct in the fourth quarter. Don't see it out of Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson, as great as he is, and how much the players on the defensive side fear him, if I was a defense and there was 2 minutes left in the game and Lamar Jackson had the ball in his hands, I wouldn't fear him at all. As a matter of fact, I would feel even more confident because you're telling me that Lamar Jackson has to go win the game for Baltimore, and that's something that I just don't think of when it comes to Lamar Jackson, is him being clutch. And I love Lamar Jackson. I really hope that they get over the top. It really hurt me to see Lamar Jackson, the Ravens, not get it done. I'm a diehard Lamar Jackson fan. I've been watching Lamar Jackson, rooting for him since his freshman season at Louisville. And I really wanted to see Lamar Jackson hoist that Lombardi trophy. Are they going to be in the conversation to do it again next year? Definitely. But with Joe Burrow coming back fully healthy, Aaron Rodgers coming back, Trevor Lawrence, him and Doug Peterson, if they can figure it out, they could be in that conversation. If Deshaun Watson ever comes close to looking like what he did when he was in Houston, the Browns are definitely going to be in that conversation. It's tough to get to the AFC Championship. And it's even tougher to have to do it getting through Patrick Mahomes. And even when you think Kansas City's down, they still find a way to overcome and find a way to still get back in the damn Super Bowl, man. This is like their 4th Super Bowl. They're about to win their 3rd championship, most likely. Because I don't think that the 49ers are going to have what it takes to beat Kansas City. I have a lot of concerns about, their coaching staff and their defensive ability to get stops. You see, when you can give Mahomes time to throw, as long as he has somewhat decent receivers that can make plays like Rashee Rice, you got a chance. When Kansas City got dominated in the Super Bowl by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in 2020, they had no protection for Mahomes up front in that game. The offensive line this season for Kansas City was less than ideal. Their offensive tackles were heavily penalized. The interior of their offensive line got worse as the season progressed. But in the postseason, this offensive line has played at the highest level that they've had since the season first started. So Mahomes and Kansas City getting this win didn't really surprise me. I wasn't expecting Baltimore, if they were to win, to blow out Kansas City. I always thought that this game was going to be close. But I never would have thought that the Ravens offense would be a complete no-show. If anything, you would have thought that the defense would have been a no-show. And these cornerbacks for Kansas City were lights out tonight. Trent McDuffie, L'Jarius Sneed, they were locked down. Now, there were a good amount of calls that weren't made. I definitely do believe that there were a couple of holding calls, pass interference penalties on Kansas City secondary that should have gotten called, but they didn't. You could say it was rigged. You can call it bias all you want to, but at the end of the day, when you have a guy like Lamar Jackson at quarterback, you expect him to show up in these kinds of situations. You're down the touchdown. You need him to put you in position to tie the game up or to only make it a one-score game. Instead of you settling for 3 on your final possession offensively, that should have been you scoring a touchdown. Lamar Jackson, maybe he just is one of those players that just in the early stages of his career doesn't know how to win in the playoffs. I believe when the Ravens, if they ever get back to this game in the foreseeable future, they're going to have a better shot at winning it because they have the experience. They know what it feels like to be in this game and what it takes to win it. And you're not going to win it just getting rid of everything that got you to that point. You see, we're about to talk about the Lions 49ers game. Everybody is criticizing Dan Campbell for his aggressiveness on 4th down. But the reason why you can't get too mad at Dan Campbell for that is because his aggressiveness on 4th down is what got him to this point. Lamar Jackson and the Ravens rushing attack is why they've been able to go as far as what they have this season, plus with what they've done in the passing game. But for them to only give their running back 6 total carries combined in this game was really unexcusable out of a guy like Todd Monken, who's one of the best play callers in the league. If the Ravens were to have an award that they give out to their top assistant, it would be a tie between Mike McDonald and Todd Monken because both of these guys have been incredible this season for Baltimore. But Mike McDonald has been the better coordinator. His defense showed up. His defense has been consistent all year long for Baltimore. This offense, and even I've said it numerous occasions, I don't believe that they've played up to the level that they're capable of playing. This should be an offense that should at bare minimum be putting up 30, 33 points per game. But to only get stopped and only get to 10 points against the Kansas City defense that, yeah, it is pretty talented, but there's not a single position on your offense where you would just outmatch by Kansas City's defense. Kansas City, they had a great game plan. Steve Spagnuolo kept Lamar in the pocket. Lamar, he did make some good throws from inside the pocket. He had a nice touchdown to Zay Flowers for 30 yards where he broke out of a sack, he reset it in the pocket, and he threw a dime to Zay Flowers. But when you keep Lamar in the pocket and you can lock down these receivers, nobody can get open, where is he going to go? And then he isn't going to have anywhere to run. So the only place for Lamar Jackson to go to is down on the ground. Like, Kansas City was sending so much pressure on Lamar Jackson that it was damn near impossible for him to have the opportunity to step up and find those big holes, to get those big 20, 30-yard runs. Those same runs that Lamar Jackson made against the Houston Texans in the divisional round, we didn't see him make too many of those big runs in this game against Kansas City. Like, they had him completely neutralized, and they had a way different game plan than what they had against Josh Allen. So, the Ravens, they were at home, and I was really confident that they were going to win this game. But I wasn't extremely confident that they were going to blow out Kansas City. Now, I was wrong. The majority of bettors out there were wrong because many people took Baltimore money line. A lot of people thought that Kansas City was just so outmatched. And they weren't. Because when you got Mahomes and Andy Reid and Travis Kelce, you always got a chance. And I know it sounds so cliche to say that because people used to say that all the time about Brady in his prime, but that's the truth. Mahomes, Andy Reid, Travis Kelce, they've been doing this for a very long time. They understand what it takes to win in a game like this. The Ravens don't. It's crazy how Lamar Jackson, the 2 times he's won MVP, it seems like they've disappointed in the postseason every year he's done it. I don't know if it's an MVP curse, but Lamar Jackson, the Ravens, like Buffalo, they're still searching for answers for how to get over the hump. You see how dominant Patrick Mahomes is right now? It's the same level of dominance that Michael Jordan had in his prime years with the Chicago Bulls in the 90s. The only time a team in the 90s won the NBA Finals was when Michael Jordan was out of the game, when he was either playing baseball or not playing at all. But when MJ was on the court and he was playing for Chicago, you weren't going to win a championship. There's a reason why Jordan is undefeated in the NBA Finals, never had to go to a Game 7 to win, because he just has a different wiring. He just is a way different player when the moment is the biggest and the lights are the brightest. And that's what not only made MJ great, but that's what made Brady great. You see, Peyton Manning gets regarded as one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, but the difference between him and Tom Brady is that Brady was better in the playoffs because Peyton Manning in the postseason just didn't look all that great. And you can be an insanely talented quarterback, but just because you're talented doesn't necessarily mean that you're always going to execute when your number gets called in these types of games, especially when you have to step up and you have to carry your team to the win. Mahomes has did something that not a lot of people believed he was going to be able to do. He was able to elevate an above average team to the Super Bowl. That's the difference between a guy like a Patrick Mahomes and a guy like a Dak Prescott or a Tua Tagovailoa. They need everything around them to win a championship. Patrick Mahomes, all he needs is a good offensive line, a good play caller, some decent receivers, and he can take you to a Super Bowl. Mahomes can do more with less. I was thinking that Patrick Mahomes not having the same supporting cast that Lamar Jackson had in this game would be a disadvantage. But it proved to be an advantage because this is the smartest that he's been playing in the playoffs. He's been better at picking his spots, picking when to push the issue, when to take certain risks. And he also has been doing a lot more on the ground than what he has done in recent memory. You know, this is a really big loss for the Baltimore Ravens fan base. This is a really disappointing game that we saw the Ravens play offensively. Lamar Jackson definitely shit the bed. I'll admit that as a diehard Lamar Jackson fan, I'll admit I was wrong. I definitely was. I definitely expected Lamar Jackson to come out here and have a historic performance, especially playing at home. But the offense, they just got away from the recipe. They got away from the secret formula. It's like they tried to switch things up in the biggest game of the season. Lamar Jackson threw the ball over 30 plus times. That's not really the way the Ravens win games. They're not really a team that's going to beat you just going completely all out passing. You got to be balanced. And they only had 6 handoffs to the running backs. That's unacceptable. You can't give your running backs only 6 carries against a team like Kansas City that you have to beat playing complimentary football and think that you're just going to beat this team just throwing it all over them. That's the strength of their team. The strength of Kansas City's defense is how good they are against the pass. They got a really good group of pass rushers led by Chris Jones. They got some outstanding corners. You know, I was just really shocked that Baltimore got away from what got them there. And that's why they lost this game. They didn't know who they are. They were frustrated on the sideline because they didn't know what the hell to do. Because no matter what they did, when they had a little bit of success, they weren't able to capitalize it. It just seemed like every time something was going right for Baltimore, they would do something self-inflicted to get them going back in the wrong direction. Kansas City, they were composed. They had a game plan. They stuck to it. And that's why they're in the Super Bowl once again. So Kansas City wins another AFC Championship. They're back in the Super Bowl. They potentially could go back-to-back, something that hasn't been done in decades. And the Ravens, this is a giant letdown of a season. This was potentially the making of what could have been a historically great season for this Baltimore Ravens team. This may be the best team the Ravens have ever had to win the Super Bowl, but the best teams don't always win the Super Bowl every time in the NFL. Congratulations to Kansas City and Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs for ending the Ravens' dream season and ending my hopes of seeing Lamar Jackson win the Super Bowl this year. And I don't know if Lamar is ever going to win the Super Bowl, but it definitely feels like he missed a prime opportunity to take advantage of the moment and the position that the Ravens were in. Now, I do believe that they have a chance of getting back to this game. Every time Lamar Jackson is healthy, the Ravens are always in contention for the 1 seed. He does have one of the best win-loss records in the NFL. But, man, bruh, this one is a tough one.